Once again, the Faces of Business. I'm your host, Damon Pistolka, and I am excited today because I am talking to Malcolm Peace from Tsetserra Partners. I believe, Tsetserra Partners. I got the first part right, and I got so excited. Growth Partners, Tsetserra Growth Partners, and we're going to be talking today about buying and building blue collar businesses. Welcome, Malcolm.
Hey, Damon, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, it's going to be fun because, these are my kind of businesses to talk about, man. These are the people that are out there making things happen every day, keeping us being able to do what we want to do, driving on the streets, turning on the lights, and the lights actually turn on, whatever. It's all good stuff. So
You're so funny. I was in Cleveland a couple months back, and I went to work out at Cleveland State's workout facility early in the morning. And before anybody else was there was guys working and building lockers and doing stuff all in there, all with their power tools. And I was like, I took a little snapshot, like, this is it. This is lovely. I mean, I get excited about it, seeing it. So this is great.
No doubt. I mean, when you see, and you just realize, even like you said, even in a gym down the street from you, there are maintenance people working on that thing. There are people keeping the HVAC going. There's people that are rebuilding the insides of them when they need to be rebuilt. There's so many things that are happening around us we don't even realize.
That's right.
Outside of our homes, man.
Yep.
So good stuff. So let's talk a little bit, Malcolm, about your background and how you really, how you decided to do Tsetserra Partners and do what you're doing, and just this, how you got into this.
Yes, great question. I would say we're kind of in the walking phase right now. We're ramping up. I've got some, fun things that we're rolling out for 2024. I think we'll get into the running phase kind of after that. But candidly, it was an evolutionary process of where do I fit into the ecosystem of small business and kind of scaling businesses and that nature. So I started doing private equity stuff coming out of my MBA program many years back, and started doing cybersecurity and defense contracting type companies. And I'll never forget sitting in Las Vegas during a convention and realize I am a total fish out of water. What am I doing here? This doesn't make any sense. And this is like early, Web 3.0, cryptocurrency, all this kind of stuff was on the rise. And I'm like, I have no idea what these guys are talking about. Nor did I really have a genuine interest. I mean, I liked the deal structure. I liked putting deals together. I liked evaluating business fundamentals. I liked all that. But like the pure essence of kind of, all that was going on in that convention, I was like, yeah, I'm totally out of this. And so all that to be said, I pivoted from there. I started doing hospitality and food and beverage type deals with a group here in Austin. And one of the theses that we had is we were buying kind of existing bed and breakfasts and adding additional facilities to them. And they were all B2C type businesses. So hospitality, wedding venue, corporate events, all this kind of stuff is what we were running and selling and developing. And when you do that, by way of just a small firm, you start interacting with a lot of blue collar guys, the septic installer, designer, the landscape designer and installer, even the roll-off dumpster and porta potty guy. And so there was one afternoon in particular, I had been brought onto that team to kind of help us do some sourcing process and systems and scale. And I started interacting with this porta potty and roll-off dumpster guy. We needed to be able to, based on fire code and all this kind of stuff, have the right, space to be able to have all the trucks come through. And I was interacting with him and kind of planning this all out. And I just got the gumption as we were, previously looking at businesses to buy that were in food and beverage, hospitality type businesses. I said to him, hey, I know this is totally unrelated, but would you ever sell your business? Like, is this something that you'd consider doing? I love just the story. And after hearing his story a little bit, I just loved hearing what he was doing. And he said, it's so funny because in a few months, we're going to transition the business actually to my business partner who reminded me a ton of you as we've had these conversations over the last few months. He's, young guy, came out of his MBA program. We're taking it over. He's got these bright ideas and he's going to go kind of put the energy behind it. And it really opened up like this idea to me that we could go do this in this kind of space and add significant value. I love sitting back on a tractor and hauling a bunch of things around, cutting down trees and all this kind of stuff outside. But I also like professionalizing businesses. And so when mixing those two, I think that, I've got this unique gifting where I can take kind of the professionalization of business and distill it down to just about anybody in these types of businesses to understand. And I think that's really key. That can cause me to be an operator a little longer than I maybe should be at times. But it definitely is I think a little secret sauce that I'm capable of doing, and I'm grateful for those skill sets.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, you don't really think about those businesses like a porta potty business.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think about that as you can have a significant porta potty business that's making really good money.
Yep.
You just don't think about it. You go, oh man, you see them servicing porta potties or porta potties sitting everywhere. You don't realize the explosion of the use of porta potties.
Yep.
Now that they're ingrained in every place now, the changes in OSHA make them almost, you got to have them everywhere.
Yep.
And they all need service. It's not like it's a choice. They need service. They get
Yeah.
serviced regular, just like a car or anything else, and they have to be serviced often. And these are
Yeah.
very good businesses and very good, especially if you can take them and what you're doing and professionalize them, bring different systems in and make it a little bit easier to run.
That's right. I think that one of the unique things is there is a need in the market for a lot of these services, a lot of these widgets and these products for extended periods of time. People need this stuff. What is lost in the process is there is usually someone that is, an industry expert or capable person in that space, and they know how to build a business with a couple, people alongside them, kind of helpers or whatever you want to call it, but they don't know how to build a business at scale. And so what we have done is we've distilled down our thesis, and what we practically do now over the last couple of years is we buy these businesses that are 3 to 12 million type businesses in revenue. And it's specific because those are the space where they've kind of gotten to a point where they've proven out their market value. They usually have some reputational components to them that is highly, sought after in the community or wherever they're, facilitating with their customers. And we can take it now and bring scale to it because there usually is enough market to be able to go do that. And so all that to be said, I think the skill set, taking a business from 0 to 7 figures or low 7 figures, is in a totally different skill set than what we do. And I have immense respect for those that are capable of starting from 0.
Yeah.
I certainly started the firm from 0, but I made a huge leapfrog kind of thing when we buy these businesses versus generating 0 to $1 million in revenue is a lot harder, but it is a different skill set. So we usually take over the business in that process to help implement that kind of game plan.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you identified a key point there, is that these people these founders are out there and they're building that business up to that 1 million, 3 million, 5 million, 10 million. And you can see them go, like you said, you guys are working in the $3 to $12 million business. You can go a long ways as a founder before you run out of that. Well, what do I do next to go to the next level?
Yeah.
And I honestly saw one in the oil fields back in the 2010, 15 or 13, over $50 million.
Yeah.
But they were booming so much that it was really, it was special to see. But also these kind of things, when you look at where is the next level for any of these size businesses, it really, that's where they stall out. There's always a natural stall out spot for them.
There will be. And that's, what we like to call is a business that's centered around the owner, a centralized business versus a decentralized business, has to take place at some point. Every business has gone through the process. Every business has created the systems that have long lasted, decades and years to come. They've created those systems. And there are people that are capable of doing that and there are people aren't. And it's a different skill set, and not, one's not better than the other. It's just a matter of figuring out what you're good at. And I love coming up with ideas, but I love coming up with ideas when there's already revenue in the door. And so that's just what I had to figure out. Creating revenue from nothing is incredibly hard. I've done it in many other circumstances, and it's hard. And so I have a ton of respect for those folks. It's just what we wanted to focus on is implementation of a game plan, professionalizing these businesses that have a long legacy within their community or within the state or vice versa around the world.
Well, and you can really focus on those specific needs of that business in that size that already has cash flow, that already has customers, that needs a different, as you said, that different kind of work that's going to take it to the next level. Whereas you're trying to figure out how to get customers and cash flow and all that other thing. So you're really able to put the things in to allow them to scale faster, which is super cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as you guys are doing this, and um you're what has really been exciting for you getting into this now? You've been doing this a few years, and really what's exciting for you in this?
Yeah, we have gotten better and better at the playbook. Let's be candid. I think that at the beginning it was like I said, we were kind of in the process of crawling and trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, I've had, in the process, I've had moments where we've implemented something, it didn't go well, and I got that feedback. I mean, I think that's the exciting part for me is like call it an R&D kind of permanent test at all times.
Mm-hmm.
What goes well wasn't go well, and I use R&D specifically because our thesis is that these businesses are built around the owner and we need to change that. And so one of the things that we have is we have a family meeting. I usually go to Texas Roadhouse or something like that, and we get some steaks and we sit down. We got a lot of guys that get pretty messy, and we get their hands washed and we sit down and have a nice steak lunch, and we have a conversation about what the org chart is going to look like moving forward. And I'm not on the org chart. And that's usually a shock because they've built kind of all the muscles where the owner's involved, the owner answer
Mm-hmm.
all the questions, the owner's all around, answering everything and solving everything, or they control everything. And so as a result, the business is only scaled to that owner's capacity and vision. I do believe, president, CEO, whatever title you use, they must have a vision of where they're going, and you need to continue to communicate that vision through quarterly conversations with your employees and your teammates to be able to do that. So recently, we closed a quarterly meeting back in October. In that time, I expressed, here was the org chart a year ago. Here's the org chart now. This is what it's going to look like. We would like to implement the following things. You guys can now select by the end of this year and going into, we do a lot of, promotions and increases and all that kind of stuff first quarter of the next year. So as we go into that season, you need to be communicating ahead of time. Here's the pathway I'd like to see happen for me. And we had some guys starting to shift around. Guys that were previously in different roles have taken on more senior roles, guys that were, prepared to kind of move into more of a management role, less individual contribution kind of role. This is where they're going now. And so they were able to make that decision because I presented an org chart that looked very different than it did previously a year ago. And it's a setting a vision of where that's going to go. Now it's part of be a part of this pathway. And candidly, maybe there's other people doing it. The business owners that we have taken the ownership from, or those that I've gone through a ton of due diligence or interacted with, they're not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. They are giving arbitrary titles, and nobody really knows what they mean. Particularly, they don't know what the KPIs are related to those titles at
Yeah.
that space. And so we start creating that process for them to see a vision, to be a part of it, and also set a vision of, hey, this is where we're going. And I don't think it can be built around just me. It has to be built around autonomy and accountability within those roles, and that's where the KPIs come into play.
Yeah, the KPIs are so critical in this. You mentioned a couple things here, and it's one of the things that we see in a lot of these businesses in this size that we're dealing with. It's like you haven't taken the time, because founders, honestly, they're good at what they did. They're the CNC person, they're the HVAC person, the electrician, the plumber that decided I can go out and do it better because I can make more money and have more freedom, right?
Yep.
And what they don't understand is they don't understand, like you're talking about now, is that at a certain point you need to define the roles and responsibilities, or the roles that are needed in the business.
Yeah.
And then people have to get into those seats. And we always talk about, you got to get the right people in right seats on the bus. Right.
Yep.
And then even those steps are hard enough to go through. And then the final step that you talked about, that is truly one of the cornerstones, I believe, of scalability, is having KPIs so that you, me, whoever it is on that team understands, how am I doing compared to what for my part, that's going to, scale this business over the long term.
Yeah.
And it's awesome that you're able to do that. So as you're doing this now, this is the question. I mean, for most people, does the light bulb come on and go, okay, I kind of understand what we're doing, and then it becomes more normal to them? Or how much resistance do you get to this?
It goes in waves. We have the first wave of folks that say, I've been doing it with Bob, Sally for so long. I don't want to continue on. I'm ready to
Yeah.
transition out. My hope, and I always tell us to owners, my hope is that number is super minimal.
Yeah.
But it's a reality, and it's
Yeah. It is.
a delayed circumstance that was inevitable to happen. And so
Yep.
when you have that, you can't take it personally. I had a buddy just close on another. He does landscaping here in the Central Texas area. He closed on a business 2 weeks ago, and he had 3 guys quit on that first day of introduction. So that
Mhm.
I haven't had that before, but I've had soon after, and so
Yeah.
it happens. And so you can't take that personally. You've got to understand that you're building a business with a vision in mind, and so you can't take that personally. But one of the things that's critical, so we have two-prong approach. We try to drive sales really, really fast through systems and automation, and we can touch on that on another time. But what we also do, and this is again going from walking or crawling to walking, and hopefully running here soon, is that there's an unbalanced leverage that's happening with employees and the owner. So here's what I mean by that. The owner is involved. Everything goes through their head. The reason they control it is because they create a system that is dependent on them so that they can maintain the leveraged control in that circumstance. But if you were to really pull back the onion and kind of open up the veil and see what's really happening, the employees are actually the ones that have the control in that circumstance. And so what ends up happening is the owner becomes dependent on them, and they don't even realize it. And so subconsciously they're trying to control everything, or maybe they do realize it and they are constantly trying to control everything. And so once I tell the employees, here's your autonomy, here's what's going on, we employ 3 to 4 VAs that start documenting every single thing that they do. Really kind of in a tough situation. And I think that's the overwhelming point, where all of a sudden everything that wasn't cloud-based has to become cloud-based because we're not local with the VAs. And so everything kind of gets brought to the surface. You had folders that are no longer utilized, and they're sitting in a document set up somewhere, and it's confusing to the third party that's coming in to understand what's going on. We've got this is something that is recent. We had literally no technical information on certain things that we manufacture. A customer asked for it, wanted clarity on something. Come to find out, we don't even have it. And so that had to be generated, and we had to get tools to measure certain things and all that kind of stuff. And so anyways, what ends up happening is that leverage point changes, where an
Mhm.
employee starts saying, oh my gosh, I'm replaceable. And that can cause two things to happen. It causes one person to say, I'm ready to step out. I don't want to be in this circumstance. Or it causes the other person to see buy-in and say, okay, Malcolm has a bigger vision. And it's important in the role that I'm in, and also those that we bring in to help in the operations process, to be able to identify what's going on in the room in that dynamic, because
Yeah.
that's the critical point of stabilization after post-transaction, is being able to understand who's the person that's really bought into the vision, or really they're just bought into like their personal vision, and hopefully this stays alongside with that. Or is it, hey, this person recognizes like there's a bigger, broader vision for them personally within the org that we're creating. So when I tell my office manager, who used to be a different title, and I change her title and be like, this is more defined of what you're doing, and I say, in 2 years' time or in 1 year's time, I expect you to have the following people reporting to you, your title will change. So I'm building your skill set to get there, because that's what the company needs in 2 years' time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Well, you're showing these people a route or a path for them into the future. And that's something that a lot of founders don't take the time to A, think about, and B, communicate. And quite honestly, in those situations, sometimes the people that you have in your business are not the people you want, because the founder probably naturally wants them to go that way,
Yeah.
but we are oftentimes stuck with people, or not stuck, excuse me, bad word. We have people in our organization that are perfectly happy being exactly where they're at and not growing with the business.
Yep. So we had 3 instances this year that I'll speak to, that might
Yeah,
be
awesome.
helpful. So one of the things we implemented in a company that we recently purchased is uniforms. And I know that sounds crazy to people, but there was no buy-in, and we had a bunch of safety issues that were going on because of it. Guys showing up with shirts that hold holes in them, and they're cutting
Yeah,
metal and doing a whole bunch of welding and all sorts of stuff. Huge liability risk if anybody walked through the door.
yep.
They weren't wearing, protective eyewear, all that kind of stuff. So we started with protective eyewear and issued shirts so they could wear Monday through Thursday, and Fridays were free Fridays where they could wear whatever they want. And so that allowed some buy-in, but what it also did is it created some hierarchy within the shirts of what color they were and what roles they were and the responsibility related to that. And I didn't mention that. It started organically coming out in conversation, like, hey, why did so and so? And I said, hey, well, did you see him on the org chart? His name is different. That's why it fit that. And so allowed them to kind of organically understand, like, there was dynamics that were being created here that were intentional to see who wanted to compete, who wanted to grow, who wanted to create onto that those pathways. So I could start the process of people self-identifying what they wanted from this.
Yeah.
Because if we're building a long-term business and we're documenting things that are going on, what they control from an SOP perspective, I need to create that urgency of where are these people going? What are they doing? Otherwise, I don't really know who's bought in. And that, again, these are my frameworks. We're in the walking phase. There's probably somebody listening that may disagree with my approach, but that's what we have found in the space. And then simultaneously, the business needed certain things. And so I needed somebody to transition out from an individual contributor to a more of a management role because they had the ability to do that, but they weren't able to do the management side. And come to find out, after 5, 6, 7 conversations, hey, I need you to do the following thing. I need you to be able to do this in order for you to move up here. He chose to self-select out, where we sat down, and before I could even have a conversation, he said, hey, I've kind of noticed the writing on the wall. I think I need to leave. I think I've spent my most time here. And it was disappointing because I saw his potential, but he couldn't get past some professional weaknesses that he had. And then the third point, I can be the Energizer Bunny. I like pushing things along. I have a lot of passion pushing things through and seeing them to completion. And so people will want to drag me into the thing. So we had a recent situation, one of our manufacturing companies, we're trying to cost save. And so we might offshore to Mexico some of the things that we do, and that a little more custom and things that a customer might want in certain circumstances, but not all the time. So it doesn't make sense for us to staff up for that particular skill set. And so we've looked at Monterrey, Mexico to bring something over. And basically the team was like, all right, so you're going to go fly there and talk to these vendors. And I said, no, the following people will be going and doing that. I will not be going. And that was a bit of a like, wait, what? And so they were so used to the owner just being involved. When the owner has passion about something, they see that the owner should just see it through. And I'm like, no, this is this person's responsibility up until this point. I've helped get it to this point. Now it's ready for him to take it. And so that's where I see my kind of day-to-day as we kind of build these businesses, is more like special project related kind of stuff.
Well, and you made a really good, a couple good points. I wrote some things down in here too. And what you guys are in what you're putting in, when you talk about the documentation of processes and making SOPs and things like this, you're really allowing the business to be scalable, because the next people up that have to do that, the only way for the people there to move up in the company and do more is to be able to backfill behind them, so those people can begin to take on more of the role that maybe the owner was doing. Like you said, in that instance, the owner was going to go to Mexico, but now you might have a person that's their job. They are the whatever outsourced person, and they're going to go do that, but they've never had to do it before. So you're getting them ready to go and do that and backfilling behind them. But from that person that's out there doing that now, yes, there's a little bit of apprehension maybe, but also you're giving them this other level that wasn't available to them before, which I think is really exciting for those people that are there after you come in.
Yeah, I completely agree. I genuinely, and there's always variance on a bell curve of this situation, I genuinely believe high, capacity people are wanting to find opportunities to learn. They want opportunities to develop. And so you got to create that. And it may be uncomfortable to create that, but you've got to find a way to create that. And most owners at this size don't do that. And people tend to leave, or they stick around and they're just kind of doing it because the lifestyle works for their families. But eventually you have to create that if you're trying to, have the ambitions that we have with these companies.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're buying these businesses, do you guys have specific goals? Are you trying to move them? How much or anything like that? What are you guys trying to do with these businesses?
Yeah. We like to double revenue in 2 years.
Double revenue in 2 years.
Yeah.
Nice.
So So obviously that informs our decision-making skills. I believe, with all the college football and stuff going on and everything going on, I use football analogies often.
Yeah.
But when you've got an end zone or a goalpost that you're going for, you make different decisions based on what yard line you're in. So,
Yeah.
based on where we start structurally with the business and the transaction side, structurally with the key employees and who are there, and reputationally what we're able to do, and then the type of business all plays into that. Depends on what kind of plays you can make. But our goal is to double revenue. And so that means we focus on certain things.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the countless conversations with businesses we bought, I've engaged with, or we've gone to due diligence with, or whatever the case may be. I ask them a simple question. I always say, if you had a crystal ball and you had 5, 10 more years to run this business, what would you focus on? And I think 9 times out of 10, maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but not much. They say sales.
Yeah.
And because they know it's a heart of the business. And I think they're either too caught up in other things and they can't focus on it, or they don't have a pathway of what sales would look like for this business without a ton of energy and resources needing to be put into it, whether that be new products, diversifying products, or stabilizing revenue. One of the businesses we own right now, we just needed to stabilize the revenue. And so we've had to work through challenges with that and figure out creative ways to do that. And there's people in our industry that were doing it by implementing some software management to the machines that they develop. And we're about to roll that out for 2024. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, there's a need and there's a reason we focus on sales and SOPs is basically those two things are crucial for us to be able to get past this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because you're trying to grow value. And this is one of the things that we when we're coaching and working with our owner founder clients, building the value of their business. We're like, listen, you need to get your business set up so the next person can see themselves growing the value.
Yep.
You can't do something and then ride out that growth curve to the end and then expect to have an excited buyer come in to have to start that process all over again. I mean, we specifically, as we're doing it, we say we're going to implement a growth some sort of growth initiative. And when we get about 50% of the way through it, maybe even earlier, that's the time that we start engaging potential buyers, because they can come in and they can continue that and develop their next phase of growth while they're doing it. And we also try to have that, because it's just, it's counterintuitive. And I can't tell you how many times over the years that my partner and I have talked to business owners and it says, "Oh, how's it going?" "It's going great." And you go, "Well, you sure that you don't want to get out?" "No, it's going too well. I don't
Yeah.
want to." And that same person will call back when the housing crisis hits, or you just pick anything, and
Yep.
COVID hits, whatever. It's like, "Oh, I
Yep.
want to sell now. I'm losing money." It's like, well, what do you think you're going to get
Yeah.
for that?
Yeah. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day. They were asking about kind of multiples we expect to pay for the businesses in our industry. We buy exclusively blue collar businesses that are B2B focused.
Yep.
And so all that to be said, we often see kind of 2.5 to 4.5 kind of in the range that we're in on an
Yep.
earnings multiple. Obviously, we use other indicators and
Yeah.
multiples
Yeah.
to get the deal done. But on average, that's kind of what we see. And
Mhm.
so, you can imagine if someone's doing 15% net margin, which is really kind of what we like to see historically in the business, allows us to have enough cash flow to work with and kind of our growth and all that kind of stuff. If they're doing 10 million bucks and they're walking away with $1.5 million every single year before taxes, essentially if they're getting paid 4x on that, they can walk away with 6 million bucks. And then an owner often says, "Well, why don't I just do this for 4 more years?" And I often say, that's fine. We can play a longer game than you can. I hope life doesn't happen, because
Yeah.
life tends to happen when unexpected things, what have you. And so you want to call me in 4 years, that's totally fine. You'll still end up with a 6x multiple if the business is consistent till that point.
Yeah.
And, historically, businesses don't stay perfectly flat. Things happen, things occur, and unexpected things happen like they did a few years ago. And so,
Mhm.
we've seen businesses that have called back later and said, "You never believe it, Malcolm. We've done X amount more and we're doing great," and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
awesome. If you're ready to sell now, that's great. We'll set up some kind of earn out structure. You can
Yeah.
participate in part of that. But 9 times out of 10, we get a phone call where people say things have not gone as well. That one key, customer we had actually pulled out. And I now I have to sell, or now I can't balance, everything going on. And so, We hope that doesn't happen for the owners that we engage with, because we never want to be in a situation where we're buying things kind of as a last resort for them. We'd rather be a part of a business that, is in a good, stable place so we can just kind
Mhm.
of focus on driving that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing I think that owners need to realize, and this is another coaching point for us and anybody we're working with is really start to adopt the buyer's perspective as you get to the end. And in football analogies, we use red zone thinking. I
Mm,
mean, when we talk with our owners that are in the last, and our clients are usually in the 40s and 50s. I mean, we're trying to build value. They've got other things they want to do. They're not necessarily going to take it all the way, but they want to get it so it's a nice business for the next buyer, right? And that red zone thinking affects things so much about everything from, like you were saying earlier, we double revenue, so our decisions are different. And
mhm,
the same thing that, you have these people that in these kind of businesses, especially these blue collar businesses, you'll see one just take plumbing, HVAC, it's across the
mm,
board construction. You'll see one company that has brand new equipment
mhm.
every single year. They've got new trucks, they've got new yellow iron, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And what we coach is we say, listen, if you sell that business, all the debt you've got in your iron and your trucks and everything else gets paid off if you sell it. This all nets out. You got to
Yeah.
consider this. So if you have good equipment,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be this year's model. Just because you like the way it looks,
Yeah.
you're going to spend a lot of money, especially if you're in that red zone and we're preparing your business to sale. You're going to spend a lot of extra money. And on your way coming in, it's a great deal for you because you're getting that. And so there's so many things that if owners prepare just a little bit, and not to the point to where you guys are, but just to make some of these different decisions. And my point is, how many times are you seeing that being just a thing that stops the deal flat? So you're going to go in this business, it looks really good, and then you look at a balance sheet item and they've got all this debt, and they figure this out and they go,
Yeah.
we just don't make enough.
Yeah, no, it definitely is the case. It happens often. I think the one thing, so the name Tsetserra Growth Partners comes from my great grandfather. He owns about 70,000 acres, 50 or 70,000 acres or so, at the base of Mount Tsetserra in southern Africa. He was a entrepreneurial guy, story for another day. But he owned this big farm that did cattle and dairy producing and all sorts of stuff. Employed hundreds of people. Family lived on the farm, all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. It was a big family business, and so the point of that is that they were thinking, how do we grow this to basically employ lots of people in the area, provide a great resource, all that kind of stuff. And the reason that I bring that up is I try to embody what my great grandfather did, where he tried to just take care of people authentically. And so when we go into due diligence or we're engaging with an owner, I try to do the same thing. I obviously am trying to get, first look at things, and I'm trying to engage with them on an early basis and have conversations that are authentic. But a lot of the time, they don't have a board of directors, quote unquote, or people around them to be able to make informed decisions. And so, what I present to them and say, here is 4 people in your local area that I have vetted. I have no financial interest. I get no kickback, sincerely. It's just people that I think are high quality. You should make the 4 phone calls. Maybe you go with a 5th person. I don't even know, but you should make the 4 phone calls about the implications. Because when I hear about all this stuff going on with, oh, we just bought the latest stuff, I think about all the tax implications that are going to happen with that. And a lot of the time, the owner is not informed about all of that stuff taking place. And so, what ends up happening for us, and this is the selfish side of it, is we get under due diligence. This stuff starts coming up. These conversations start happening. And then the deal has a potential to be, it goes dead or it falls apart. And I
Yeah.
don't want that. I want to be able to say, here's an honest offer. Here's an honest structure we're trying to create with you. Let's get it done, and let's not engage in too many conversations about, why this shouldn't work, or issues that we
Mm-hmm.
didn't see, or that, whatever, because there's going to be enough of those authentically that just
Yeah.
happen because we're learning through this process together. But at the same while, we try to bring in people around them that they may not have, kind of in their board of directors.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the other thing that I've seen happen in that situation is someone like yourself coming in, making reasonable offers, and then the sellers, the owners that are these founders, um, they really don't have that. They don't have a trusted advisor, so they're talking to their friend Steve, who Steve heard from somebody else somewhere else, or read a Wall Street Journal article that Steve has no idea that a public company is valued at about double what a private company is. And it comes back to John, who's the founder, and says, you're just getting hosed. You're getting half the money you're supposed to. So it's a shame these business owners are there's not more information for them to make really good informed decisions. And but I'm glad you're doing it, because it's so sorely needed for them, because that's their biggest fear, right? This is they've spent their life creating this thing. They want to maximize their way out. And there is a real blend between what you're looking for as someone coming into the business and them coming out. In those honest conversations, it's like someone told me a couple of days ago, I was talking to this lady that does lots of M&A stuff and lawyer and all that stuff. She says that every M&A transaction is I think she said, no one's really happy, but they're both satisfied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I learned, I learned in my MBA program years ago, in a negotiations class, there's this concept of a Nash equilibrium. Essentially, two people starting from two different points, and they basically have to work through conversation to find kind of that point that makes sense for everybody. Sometimes you walk away and you're like, I feel like I left something on the table. Sometimes you walk away and you're like, I feel like I don't know all the answers of the things I needed to know, and you find those out after the fact. And there's obviously, those that have not been through a transaction, there are ways to solve for that after the fact through reps and warranties and other structures. But our goal is like, we want to be, taking care of this business. It's thriving. And in 5 years' time, you're walking through the door excited and you're greeted with a warm welcome. I really mean it sincerely.
Yeah.
That building a business and what we're building from and what you were able to get it to is way harder than what I think we're doing. And so as a result, I want you to be honored in that way, not bashed. And so that's super important in the culture that we're creating.
That is so cool, man, because it really is. When you see a good transaction done and the next owners take it over, it's so rewarding if they just see it continue on and continue to build that legacy. But JP has a good comment here. The seller's tax liability, that's something that is really, really important, because it's substantial. And especially even in when you get when you get into the larger size of business that you guys are working with, say someone's going to buy a business for 10, 12 million dollars transaction costs. I mean, the right work 5+ years ahead can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes. And that's just a whole nother topic, JP. I'm glad you brought it up. But it is significant, and it's something that, education again will help these people make these current owners make more informed decisions as they're in that red zone, right? That red zone, that 5 years ahead of the sale. What am I doing to make sure that I'm really going to come out of this with the best results? So Malcolm, going into 2024, though, you guys have been in this now 5 years. You're going in this, you're walking now, as you said.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you really are getting excited about for 2024?
Yeah. So one of the scale is always a thing that we do within portfolio companies, but don't do well in the firm often, right? Because you end up getting busy with other things. And so one of the ways that we're looking to do that is, our original thesis was I would come in as CEO, operator, president for the first 6 months, and then transition out. Candidly, that was a bet on me, a bet on my kind of what I consider kind of EQ and ability to interact with a lot of folks in different ways and distill down information to kind of get them all on the same page. I have found that there are other people that are very capable of doing that as well. You have to vet them well. You have to make sure that they have, not just the hard skills, but kind of the EQ side of it and being able to interact with folks that have been used to a different system for a long time. I was telling somebody, my kiddo had a little holiday party at school today, and I was explaining a little bit what we do and how we focus on. And he immediately had the idea of like Office Space, the consultants come in and they're going to change everything.
Yeah.
We don't want to create that culture. That culture can be toxic. It is very classic private equity in some ways. And so We don't want to create that. We want to create long-term stability. Our intention is to
Yeah.
not ever sell these businesses unless some weird unicorn situation happens. We have no intention of sell. That's not what we think about when we go in. We think about how do we create great cash flowing businesses over a long period of time. And that means the business will have to pivot and change. And so the way that we're evolving for that, and it's not recreating the wheel, there's other firms doing this across the country, but we're going to roll out a program where we have somebody in-house for 9 months to 6 to 9 months, basically getting trained in the way that we think about business, knowing that they've come in with some of that acumen already, to be a part of that operating team immediately when we close in the transaction and during the due diligence process. And so we've been gearing up for that, trying to get that training right. And we've got now a bench of people that are interested. And so we're buying exclusively in Texas businesses. We look in first markets, imagine the big metros of Texas. And then we also look in secondary and third markets for businesses that, again, have been around longer than 10 years. And we want to bring in people that want to be a part of that, because it is not scalable for me to be the owner and operator of all these businesses all the time. And I disappoint more than anything else a lot of employees when I'm not there or not able to, be involved in all of that. So we're changing the model. And again, it's just part of our, I think, walking phase to running phase that needed to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's cool. And you're applying the things that you're doing in your portfolio companies as far as putting in systems to train your operators so they can go out and implement and develop and implement the strategies that you're currently doing at a smaller scale now, but you're allowing it so you can put more people to go on a larger scale and go out.
Yeah.
So, looking at that, that's very exciting. I mean, because you're talking about you can double, triple, quadruple the amount of portfolio companies.
Yeah, in theory, it was like we could do 1 to 2 businesses a year if we do it the model where Malcolm was. And my hope is once we kind of fine tune this a little bit, we're doing basically double that. Maybe I don't know. We're not in any rush, and maybe the sizes of the business that we incorporate are slightly different. Maybe they look slightly different. Well, there will be some iterations that has to take place in order to make all that. But my hope is that that's the way we scale, where we bring, bright men and women that want to be in businesses for a long period of time and just be there to develop. I think we've perfected some sort of game plan. There's always this debate in kind of the holdco space of sorts. Do you build a centralized business or a decentralized business? Do you let the portfolio companies kind of just run independently and you get some reporting?
Oh, yeah.
I haven't gotten there yet. Maybe I have a bit of a control angle that I'm not ready to give up, but we have a system. We implement low code, no code software that allows us to scale quickly. We've got a 100-day game plan that we give out to the general public, just showing exactly what we do. And that's been refined over time. And we hope that, we'll get more and more people that want to be a part of what we're calling our generalist vice president program. It's, no unique name other than this is a person that wants to be a part of what we're doing and is looking to be a part of, operating these businesses long-term. Yeah.
So, if you got listeners out there, if I got listeners out there and you're thinking about this, get on the Tsetserra website and take a look and see what they got going on, or reach out to Malcolm here on LinkedIn and connect with them. Cause these are exciting opportunities for people to be able to come in and do that. I lost my last train of thought there. I had the question of the century that was going to come out, but I lost it completely. Because it's just cool. It's cool what you guys are doing. I do. I come back to this thing before. I mean, we're getting close to time here. We usually try to go 45 minutes, but I got a couple questions because we might have some business owners listening here today. And I really want to ask you, when you're coming in and talking to these business owners, what are some of the things that really don't allow you that just stop you, that you go, okay, if they would fix this thing, or if this wasn't like that, this is different, or I just don't want to put words in your mouth, but what are like the top 1 or 2 or 3 things that you really find that don't allow you to get as far, down to the end like you would like to?
Yeah. So we got started, or really I got started, where I realized there was a pervasive issue of business owners that wanted a son, niece, nephew, daughter to take over their business. It just wasn't there. People are often, I think there was a phase of business, and maybe it's hopefully changing, or maybe it's still happening, and I'm just trying to personally change it with my own family. There was a time where business was like the thing that took dad or mom away, right? Like it
Yeah.
constantly was tension within the house.
Yep.
People said, I don't want anything to be a part of this because it always was a negative thing. Dad always had to work a whole bunch. That is truly the sacrifice that happens a lot of the time getting started. You have limited budget,
Yeah.
limited people you can get,
Yep.
like that truly is. And so, I often find that I am sitting in a room with an owner, sometimes at tears, because I'm solving that need for them.
Yeah.
And then I have to have the conversation of, now you will transition out. And that's going to be incredibly emotionally hard for you to do because you have had that sacrifice. You know what took place
Yeah.
within your family or the sacrifice you had to make personally in your life to be able to make this happen. And now I'm going to just, I'm not going to disregard that, but we have a next phase of the business. And I want to honor you that by what you get paid through and also your freedom to show up and, say hi, all those types of
Yeah.
things. But, there is that transition. And so we have to have conversations of like, what does the business dependency look like on you? And what can it actually do irrespective of you? That process is a tough conversation. And we try to have those
Mhm.
early on. And it
Yeah.
does bring a little bit of, hairs on the back of my neck stand up when I hear an owner say, here's all the things that I solve to keep this engine running. I often have to think, okay, is there somebody else on the team that should be solving it? Do we have to hire for that immediately? What's the downside risk in this transition?
Mhm.
Because there's enough statistics that show that either families take over the business from each other and the business doesn't transition well, or other private equity firms flip the companies really fast because they leveraged to a teeth and they had to do that just to make
Yeah.
the transaction work. And
Yeah.
so we tell a business owner like, hey, look, we may not be the highest price, but I assure you, we are going to honor what you've done here. And that's our intention. And so we fit for a seller too, right? We're a buyer that has to fit for the seller,
Mhm.
where they want to, keep their employees intact and they
Yeah.
want to be in a situation where, the business can maintain and continue thriving moving forward with a different kind of MO, but overarchingly protecting the brand and everything that's around it. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, no, that's a great, great explanation there. And one of the things that you guys are doing that I really enjoy too is you're buying for the long hold, and that is really cool. And it takes a different kind of work like you guys are doing, and your operational focus and doubling that revenue and really getting it to where you want to be and doing those things. But it's cool what you guys are doing. So
I would say, just for the audience sake, that was intentional. Making those decisions were intentional for us, or what decisions we make going forward. And that when I made that analogy earlier about football field and things like that, like that's something that I preach way too much. Probably my team probably gets sick of it. There's a few things there, but yeah, you make different decisions based on the outcome or the
oh
area
yeah,
that you're shooting for. And so when we say
100%.
we're going to buy this and hold this for a long period of time, you make different decisions. You don't certain risks, you don't take certain risks,
Yep.
all that stuff. And so, yeah, it's intentional.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I tell you, business owners that are concerned about their legacy really need to think about that in the next owners of their business.
Yep.
I mean, that is a huge thing. And if that's a big deal to you, then it's definitely a consideration. But
Yeah.
man, I tell you what, Malcolm, it's been awesome talking to you, and we'll have to have you back too because there's so many things I've got so many notes about that we could talk about later because you guys are actively scaling these businesses, you're doing those kind of things. I think it'd be incredible for us to do that later. But thank you so much today, stopping by and talking about buying and building these blue collar businesses and what you guys are doing there in Texas, and just sharing your story.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. If anybody ever wants to reach out, I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, and what have you, but you can find out more information on tsetserra.com, spelled TSETSERRA, and happy to chat with anybody about either, selling their business or looking to be a part of our generous president program, be a part of operating side of things as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for being here today. Thanks everyone for being here. We had JP. I had someone that made a nice comment at the beginning. We don't see it through the profile here. And then Curtis Tompkins is on here today, a friend of mine. Thanks so much for being here today. And all you listeners here, if you're a business owner that's thinking about selling your business, if you're someone that's interested in being an operator in businesses, go back and listen to what Malcolm was saying here. maybe Tsetserra Partners is for you. Maybe you need to be in Texas if you're not already running some of their cool blue collar businesses and scaling them like they are. But we appreciate you. I want to make sure that you are getting the information you need. So reach out to Malcolm or stop by and we'll get you some more information. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Malcolm, for being here today.
Thanks again.